What is a big year?
The challenge was on. The big year was the ball.
Well, thank you for that nice introduction, Bill, and thank you to everybody for welcoming us here and on Zoom. Ethan and I met in 2013, and at that time, I was a birder and he wasn't so much a birder. But that quickly changed as we went on birding expeditions together, went to birding festivals, and he really got taken with the hobby, sport, whichever you want to call it. And so much so that in 2021, he did a Maine big year and set a new state record. I retired a few years later in 2023, and we had talked for many years about doing a big year together, and we decided to do a lower 48 state big year. So this evening, we'll share with you some of the birds that we saw, some of the adventures that we had, people that we met, places that we saw. There were so many. And discuss some of our planning, and then we look forward to answering any of your questions that you may have at the end.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, the screen.
Okay.
We're losing a bit of our screen.
Right, so we're missing where we began, which was in Massachusetts. On January 1st, we started out in Salisbury Beach, Massachusetts, because we had heard from a good friend that a long-eared owl could be found there, not an easy bird to get. So we decided, let's go there and get that bird checked off our list. And I don't know how well you can see, but there is a long-eared owl in this tree. Sometimes that's the best view we got of a bird. And sometimes that's better than some views of other birds that we saw. But fortunately, in nearby Newburyport, there was an eastern screech owl roosting in the cavity of this tree right in downtown Newburyport by some beautiful sea captains' homes. Our first real chase of the year was for a rare bird that was here from Eurasia, the red-flanked bluetail. It had been coming to a condominium community in New Jersey for a couple of weeks at least, and we really had our fingers crossed that this bird would stick around. It did. We arrived there, and about just 15 minutes later, the bird flew in, and you can see it's aptly named. It's got red on the flanks and that bright blue tail that is probably most prominent in the lefternmost picture. Okay, from there, let's see, I have to look at my notes because I can't see the screen too well. Okay, I think this is.
Yeah, this is me. Our next real trip of the year was, we got on a plane and we went to the Zaxton Bog in Minnesota. And Zaxton Bog is known for a couple things. During the summer, incredible mosquitoes. During the winter, incredible cold, and all year round owls. And one of the birds we were targeting to get there was a great gray owl. And part of the reason for the great gray owl was this was the only bird Ingrid had seen that I hadn't seen, and it caused a lot of difficulty in our marriage. I was away on a business trip, and this showed up in, what was it, Searsmont? Searsmont in 2017, and she rubbed it in for the next 5 years. So anyways, the Zaxton Bog is huge. We hired a guide, and though you're having a tough time seeing up there, we drove the first day through endless icy roads, staring out the window, trying to find a watermelon, a gray watermelon sitting in the top of a tree with a bow tie. And we never saw it. We saw a lot of other cool birds. But the next day, and we were really getting scared we weren't going to see it. Ingrid got a text on one of the message blogs up there that there was a great gray owl on Admiral Road. And our guide just casually took off down the road at 50 miles an hour on these icy roads, waving his hands around, telling us about different things. And we were terrified, but we eventually got there, and you can see it in this picture up in the top of the tree there, a gray watermelon with a bow tie, and we got a little better views of it too.
So the score was evened up.
Yeah. I cried basically. And later we had lifer pie. And for those of you that aren't familiar with lifer pie, when you get a life bird, you get a piece of pie. And during the course of the big year, I had 200 life birds. Ingrid had 212. So after a week or so, we decided we were going to put this aside. We, end of January, we finally got in the car and began driving around the country. And we looped down the East Coast and got to Florida. And before I was a birder, or before Ingrid was a serious birder, we all thought flamingos were a common thing in Florida. You saw them all the time. They're not. They're very, very rare in Florida. They used to nest there, but they haven't since before the Second World War. But at the end of 2023, maybe in the fall, there was a hurricane that blew flamingos all over the United States. They ended up in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Massachusetts. And as soon as they landed, they started coming right back south. And by the time we got around to our big year, there were 2 flocks left in Florida, one on the Atlantic coast, one on the, what is it, Gulf America, is it America? Oh, well, let's not get into that, on the Gulf Coast. And we raced trying to get to one on the first sighting before dark. And we thought we were there, and we pulled into the place where the flamingos were supposed to be. And this is what we saw. The sun was setting right behind us. We couldn't see a thing. If you look there in the right quadrant, you might be able to see some white pelicans, but we sure as heck couldn't see any flamingos. So with tears in our eyes, we went back to our hotel room, and the next morning they were right where they were supposed to be. And they were like 6 foot tall, bright pink, dwarfed everything around them. And a week or so later, we saw the other flock on the other coast, and that's a juvenile. And you can see how big even the juveniles are. Corpus Christi, we worked our way through Florida, across the Gulf, and got down to Texas. And there'd been a cattle tyrant. And a cattle tyrant is a kind of flycatcher that hangs out, this particular one, around the Panama Canal Zone. No one knows how this bird got there. It's kind of controversial, but it had been there for 2 months or so, and we've been hearing it was right in the middle of town near a dumpster, near a Chinese restaurant, but we were just praying it was still there. So when we got there, Ingrid almost stepped on it, literally. And it wandered around our feet, dodging in and out of traffic. And it stayed around for quite a while. Unfortunately, it lost a leg, but was still being seen in town. And it was a real nice view. You can't see, but up in the top center of the screen, there was a road sign where, Smith and Jones Road came together, and it was sitting right on top of it. So we were able to tell people exactly where to find it.
I think this can be dragged down.
Hmm?
I'll let you do it. So I think this can be dragged down.
You
but I don't know
can?
if you want to. No, if you just click on it, and you might be able to drag that bar down to the bottom.
Oh, this?
Dare do it.
Okay, that helps a little.
All right. Next, we were in Brownsville, Texas, for another bird we had heard a lot about before our year even started. There were a lot of birds like this. We just had been in Texas for quite a while, and we just prayed they would still be there. This one, we kept hearing from social media that it was seen near styrofoam. Often the post would say it's on the styrofoam, the fantail warbler's next to the styrofoam. So we envisioned these huge blocks of industrial styrofoam, right? We got there, and this is what it actually looked like. I mean, it's like trash from somebody's cooler, right? We went there twice. The second time we were there were people who had been there for hours. We got really lucky. We were there 15 or 20 minutes when the bird came out, much to everybody's excitement.
Yeah, but this is the view of all the people waiting.
People were playing cards, people were taking naps. They'd been there for hours. And you can see it kind of hopping through the brush. It actually did go across somebody's feet, fanning its tail. Beautiful little bird.
This was a code 4, and birds are ranked. Code 1 are like black-capped chickadees. They're found everywhere. Code 2 are very common birds, but they're very regional. Code 3 are rare birds. Code 4 is, it's only been seen a few times in the US, and Code 5 are very unusual. And we got 3 Code 5s during the course of the year.
Okay, another Code 5 bird, and I believe this was the first time the mottled owl had been seen in the United States, was in Roma, Texas, right along the border. We went to a place called Santa Margarita Ranch earlier on. You could see the video we were playing was taken at the ranch. And you went to get there, you drive right along the border wall. The border wall crosses through the ranch property, and you walk through a door in the wall to get onto the property, and it's still about another mile down to the river. So here we all gathered up, waiting to go on. You have to be with a guide to go on the ranch. So we got gathered up with headlights, walked down a trail. The guides played the call of the eastern screech owl because they had learned that that gets a response from the mottled owl, which we did hear.
That's the mottled owl.
And then it did fly in. We had some nice views. The next day, we were back at the ranch for a full day, and we ended up getting 104 species that day. We were kind of fortunate. There was a drought in Mexico that year, so they were coming across the border looking for water and food, and so a lot of rare birds showed up there. So we did really well there. Next, we were in Weslaco, Texas for other birds, but parrots and parakeets as well. These are interesting. We were really trying very hard to get all the parrots and parakeets that we could, because if they establish a breeding population, so these are birds that people have gotten released, that were people's pets. They got out into the wild. If they have established a breeding population, you can count them in a big year. So we really made an effort to get as many as we could. Parrots have been renamed Amazon, so that's why you'll sometimes see the name Amazon. When we were in Weslaco, we were looking for some lilac-crowned parrots. You can't really see it in the illustration here from David Sibley's guide. They look very much like red-crowned parrots, but they just have a little lilac on their head. We were looking for 2 of them in this big block of red-crowned parrots. And the funny thing was that they would come into this neighborhood, but you didn't know exactly where they were going to be in the neighborhood. And you had to watch the sky and watch for them flying around, and they wouldn't stay very long in one spot. So we were driving all around. We weren't the only birders doing this, all around the neighborhoods, looking, getting these birds in and out of our cars, looking for them. It's a wonder that no dogs got run over or small children. But we did eventually find them. We took lots of photos. It was getting toward dusk, and we did get the 2 lilac-crowned parrots.
You
Mhm.
could, on the self view there, why don't you go ahead and click on the little line there to minimize that?
Okay.
So we could drag it down that
Yeah.
way. The only other thing, I don't know if I dare do it, if Control minus might shrink your screen.
Well, let's try it. How about Command minus? Mhm. No,
There's some mirroring.
I think there's a mirroring issue, yeah, right. So anyways, you can see Marion in this photo. In the center there. Planning our big year. Now I had, I was retired, Ingrid was still working, and I had a few years to really do planning for this. And let's see, missed it again. And so I'm a ex-software developer. I wrote software for insurance companies, which is pretty exciting, of course. And so this was an opportunity to work on stuff that was more interesting. And so I did some computer modeling on eBird data, and our idea was to get as many code 1 and code 2 birds as possible. And beginning of the year, we did a lot of car travel, wrapping around the country. The second half of the year, we did a lot of air travel. And air travel, we actually took 40 takeoffs and landings during the course of the year. And mainly because we flew out of the Portland Jetport, and you can't get there from here. So we also did a lot of pelagic trips. During the course of the year, we went out on 14 different boat trips, ferries, pelagics, whale watches, traveled over 700 miles, and we got 42 birds, I think, out in the sea. And that's very, very important. A lot of people forget about pelagics on big years. And this is Sandy Comito, and he's probably the greatest big year birder of all time. And Comito's strategy, he's actually if you've seen the movie The Big Year, the Bostic character is modeled after him. And Comito's strategy when he was always chase the rare birds. If he heard about a rare bird, he would take off in his car and just drive straight to it. He wouldn't stop to go to the bathroom. He wouldn't look at the bird on the wire. He wouldn't eat. He'd just go for it. And he was very successful. He broke the ABA big year record twice, and he just created the model on how you did big years. And because he was so successful, we decided to do the exact opposite. And we basically set up a strategy of just trying to get all the code 1s and code 2s. And hopefully we'd run into a few rare birds as we were traveling, because there would be a lot of birders around that area. And it seemed to work pretty well.
So we spent 5 weeks driving down the East Coast across into Texas. Our son and daughter-in-law live outside of San Antonio. We left our car there, flew home for 3 weeks, which gave us kind of a break and a chance to get back home and check on our beloved cats that we have there, and to let the birds migrate in more and build up. So then we flew back, picked up our car and headed west. And one of our first stops was in Sandia Crest, New Mexico, for rosy finches, which are difficult to get. They're at high elevation, but if you go to Sandia Crest, you can drive up the mountain rather than hike it. So we thought that was a pretty good deal. We did that, and there is a feeder that's maintained by a local Audubon society up there. We did drive through some snow. That was fun. And we waited about 15 or 20 minutes again at this feeder, and we were really fortunate that all 3 species of rosy finches flew in with a few other birds while we were there. So it's a great place to get those birds, not far from Albuquerque.
It was colder up there.
Okay, so Ethan told you about his favorite bird of the year, and I'll tell you about mine, the elegant trogon. And you'll see why in a moment. This bird is just so wonderful if you haven't seen one before. We had been in Arizona a couple of years prior, and we had tried to see an elegant trogon and missed on that. So I was really hoping to see an elegant trogon. I even put on my elegant trogon t-shirt from Tucson Audubon, like this is going to be the day, because we had heard that one was coming to Cave Creek Ranch in Portal, Arizona.
She wore it every day of the whole year.
So we got there and we waited about 2 or 3 hours, and the bird just never came into the trees. And this is in the Chiricahua Mountains. And Portal is in the very southeastern corner of Arizona, right along the New Mexico border. Anyway, waited and waited. People started leaving. Eventually, I was the only person there waiting in this area where these berry bushes are that supposedly the trogon had been coming into. Ethan had gone a little further away, and I just thought, what should I do? Should I stay here in case the bird comes in? Should I go where he is? Because maybe he'll see it and I miss it, and then what are we going to do? And as I'm pondering all this important stuff, I look over my shoulder, and there in the tree right above me is the elegant trogon. I didn't see him come in. I didn't hear him. I just was enthralled staring at him. And then I thought, oh, okay, wait a minute. I've got to get these other people as many as I can on this bird, including Ethan. So how can I do that without scaring them away? So I just very quietly started whispering, trogon, 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 a little louder, a little louder, a little louder. And eventually a few people were able to come back. They heard me, saw him. Ethan saw him, was there for about 2 more minutes at the most, and then flew away. So I was really excited. We were fortunate later in the year. We were back in Arizona in August in Madera Canyon and saw another one then. So that was very exciting.
The most challenging part of the year was early April, and we went to bed on the, I guess the 5th in Flagstaff, Arizona, and we had to be in Bath, Maine 13 days later for a meeting. Now, that doesn't sound very hard, driving across the country in 2 weeks, but we had a number of places that we had to be during the course of that trip. Shoot. First, we had to be in the Grand Canyon, and the Grand Canyon is obviously the Grand Canyon. But on the North Rim, they have condors, was American condors, right?
California.
California condors, thank you. And the California condor almost went extinct in the 60s or 70s. They were all captured.
They were captured in the 80s.
In the 80s, was it? All right. And they were put into a breeding area and then slowly reintroduced into California and into Arizona. And you can't see it unfortunately, but the top corner is a juvenile California condor, and we saw an adult. The funny story about the Grand Canyon is we were parked about 50 yards from the rim, and we're walking up because neither of us had ever seen it except from a plane. And we're walking up and looking under the bushes for birds and up in the trees for birds and everything. And then all of a sudden we looked at each other and said, what are we doing? The Grand Canyon is 50 feet away. So we went over and looked at it. It was everything they say it is. It's just awe-inspiring. Okay, 2 days after that, we had to be in Hennepin, Utah for a greater sage grouse lek. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the grouse of the Great Plains or the prairie chickens, females form a circle and then the males display in the middle. Grouse blow their chest up, making these incredible sounds, and then the prairie chickens jump up in the air. They all do these incredible mating displays. The problem with this is they're always in remote places. They only do it right at dawn. It's very cold at dawn. And so we stayed in Hennepin the night before, and we got up early and we're at the Hennepin Lek. And it's basically just a pull off at the side of the road. And as we pulled in, Ingrid says, I think the birds are already here. And we kind of flipped on our flashes, and they were. And then they started coming down out of the mountains, out of the hills, I guess. And then they were all around the car. I mean, feet away.
Crazy.
And you can see the females are just as impressed as a middle school dance. She just looks at, oh, please. So anyways, this went on for what, an hour maybe, something like that. And then a golden eagle came in and they all disappeared. And we talked to a couple of the other people there and they said, this happens every day. They sit there, display, the golden eagles come in and they take off.
We were fine with that because you have to have your car off and it was extremely cold. So so finally we can leave and get some heat.
Yeah, right. You're not supposed to leave till the birds are gone, and our windows are all open and it was cold. 2 days later, we were at the Gunnison sage grouse lek. And for those of you who want to know what the difference, if you look at a Gunnison and a greater, I can't tell the difference. They look exactly alike. But the Gunnison is endangered. There's very, very few places to see them. And we signed up to go sit in this blind. And what they did is they picked you up in Gunnison, Colorado. They took you to the blind well before it got light. And when I say blind, I mean it's a big metal storage container with the front cut off, and they have a door flapped in front of it. So it's below zero. We're in a metal box, no lights, and you're not supposed to talk. It was very, very pleasant. And so the doors opened and we got this incredible view of a Gunnison sage grouse. It was a tad disappointing, but this is sometimes all you get in a big year. 2 days later, we were in Hayes, Kansas for the Prairie Chicken Festival. And they probably laugh at our oyster festivals and our clam festivals, but basically birders descend on this place for the chicken festival. And they put us in a van again before dawn, and we went out to get the greater prairie chicken, and you can see them jumping in the back. And that's the way they display. And the lesser prairie chicken, which is an endangered species and it's very hard to find, shoot, you can't see it, but in the top right-hand corner, there's this blurry dot, and that's the best shot I got of a lesser prairie chicken the whole time we were there. Interesting thing, though, is after we went to see the chickens, they took us all out to a diner for breakfast. And it was so Americana, you can't believe it. And so we're sitting at a table and we're talking to this other birder. And we say, "Where are you from?" And it was Andy, what's Andy's name?
He's from Pittsburgh.
And so we were going to the dry tortugas, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And he says, "All right, this is where you get this bird there. This is where you get that bird there." And we're taking down notes and everything. So it was very fortuitous. Then we headed for Chicago, and there were two European birds that have set up breeding populations in Chicago, the Eurasian tree sparrow and the European goldfinch. And these are probably also escapees that have set up breeding populations. And where we got to the place we were looking for the tree sparrow, we ran into another birder we met in Texas. And she said, "Oh yeah, they're up the street. You go around there right by the feeder." So again, there's so much of this is networking where you just ask people, "Where do you find this bird? Where do you find that bird?" Oh, and the European goldfinch was on a Sunday in a office park in the middle of Chicago. There wasn't a soul around. It was kind of fun.
That helped us, actually.
And a couple days later, we were in Boston to get a blue grosbeak. Now, we were going to get lots of blue grosbeaks later in the year, but this was kind of cool to get one in Boston. And I made it back from my meeting.
All right, we flew down to Florida again in May to go to Dry Tortugas National Park, which is a fantastic place to go, really fascinating. People go out there to go to the fort and tour the fort, but they also go snorkeling and they're swimming. And so this is Fort Jefferson. You take a boat from Key West. It's about an 1.5-hour ferry ride. The day we went, there were no other birders on the trip, which was kind of unusual. We were the only ones that looked the part. It was clear. So we were nervous because there is a little island called Hospital Key where we wanted to see brown and masked boobies, and they don't typically go close to it if there aren't birders. So we are boarding the boat, and I said to the captain, "Can I ask you a question?" And he looked at me and he said, "Hospital Key?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "We'll go by." I could have kissed him. I was so happy, so relieved. People on the boat knew how important this was to us. They were terrific. As we got close, they moved away from the bow to give us their spots. Our hats flew off. They got our hats for us. And we were able to get both the brown and the masked boobies. From there, we traveled on to Garden Key, which was nearby. Garden Key is home to Fort Jefferson. We got off the boat or right before we got off the boat, actually, you can see some of them flying around, these magnificent frigate birds. You can see magnificent frigate birds in other places in Florida, but what was so astounding here was the number of them because they nest on the island. So that was really cool. And our primary reason for being there was to get up birds you really can't get anywhere else. So I'll let Ethan talk about the naughties.
These are brown noddies. And if you can't find a brown noddy during the spring on dry tortugas, you're blind and deaf. I mean, they're everywhere. There's thousands of them. And they're kind of tern. And we were looking for two noddies that weren't brown. They were black noddies. And there's two in this entirely big flock. And we had heard about them. We had some general ideas where to find them. We got off the boat. We're from Maine. It was so hot. It was just brutal. And so what we did is we went into the fort and set up our spotting scope. And Ingrid said, "Okay, I'll take the first thing trying to find the noddies." And we basically set up about an 1.5 hours to try to find the black noddies, and then we move on to another bird. And so Ingrid looks in the scope and said, "Oh, I got him." And I thought, oh, that's so adorable. She thinks she got him in 10 seconds, but she did. Up in the top left-hand corner, you can see, maybe the arrow will point, they'll come back. Maybe not.
Very top, there it is.
Yeah, there we are. And the black noddy is just a little smaller. It's black, a little brown bill. And literally she found it in 10 seconds. So that was pretty cool.
That was luck.
Yeah.
For sure.
These are sooty terns, and this particular bunch of sooty terns are nesting by the seaplane landers. And so obviously with seaplanes coming in and out, they're not particularly scared of anything. And again, they were everywhere. They were very, very loud. And we were looking for bridal terns, which basically there's just a couple of them on the island. They're nesting there, and they're kind of a grayish back. Ingrid saw one flying not long after we got there, and Andy, who had told us where to find the black noddy, said they're on the helicopter pad. That's where you find them. And so we went to the helicopter pad, and there was a big rope saying danger, no admittance. I guess they're doing construction, or it's just become so dilapidated. So every single place we tried on the island to get to that lobster pad, helicopter pad was blocked off, and we thought, oh, we're not going to be able to get in there. Finally, we found a pylon on the beach, and we both stood on top of it, held onto each other in a tree, and we were able to look over the edge, and there was the bridal tern. Yeah. It's only about 20 feet away from us, but we almost killed ourselves getting there. All right. Remember what the next one is? Mount Washington.
Maybe, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. The bicknell thrush is a bird that winters in the Dominican Republic and Cuba and nests in New England above the 4,000-foot mark. And we had both climbed up Saddleback a number of times to see the birds, and it's a challenging little hike. And but since we could do this in any state we wanted to, we took the van up to the top of Mount Washington, and that was much easier. We had a driver that took us up there. And if you look, this is around the 4,000-foot mark. What's the name of the trees? Crumble. And some of these trees are probably 100, 120 years old, but they're dwarfed because of the bad weather. Now, we could hear the bicknells. They were singing, but the wind was whipping, and we just basically just looked and looked and looked and had zero luck. And we were all walking back to get to the van because the van went up there before everybody else was going up Mount Washington. And as I'm walking back to the van, I looked over to the left, and there was one. And I managed to get everybody in the van on it, and we got good views of them. Kirtland's warbler. Next trip, we got on a plane and flew to Michigan to get the Kirtland's warbler. Now, Kirtland's warbler is a habitat specialist. They live in nest in jack pine trees, I think between 6 and 12 feet high. Don't hold me to that. And they have to have burned in the last 10 years. So it's a very, very, very limited area that they can actually live in. And obviously now that we take care of putting out forest fires, et cetera, it's hard for them to find a place to nest. So they have certain areas in Michigan that they have opened up and managed for the Kirtland's warbler. The other thing is brown-headed cowbirds tend to lay their eggs in their nests, and that ends the Kirtland's warbler. So we got there, and we thought it was going to be challenging, but it was very easy. You just got there and you just listened for them, and they have a very distinctive song, and they're beautiful birds and incredibly rare unless you're in this one field. So.
So finding birds, we talked about how networking with other people is really helpful. We obviously used eBird. Ethan, being a software developer, had written an app that really helped us a lot. It took a lot of the eBird data and sorted it out for us and helped us save us a lot of time. Also, some of the group me's and other social media apps were very helpful to us. An interesting example was when we were in Phoenix, we were looking for rosy-faced lovebirds, and we hadn't found them. And we got a little desperate one night, and I went on, like, what can I find? What can I find? And well, I found this Facebook site called Phoenix is for Lovebirds, and people would post photos of lovebirds coming to their feeders. But once in a while, somebody would mention a place in the public domain where you could find them, and they kept talking about this one park. We went there the next morning and found the lovebirds. So that was another tool that was really helpful to us, was using social media. Okay, so another bird that kept eluding us beside the trogon was the American dipper. This is a really unique bird because it's the only songbird that goes underwater to catch its prey. We went to a fish hatchery, and this is in Washington State. And we had gone there because we'd heard that there were reports of one or more than one being there. We kept checking the tanks, couldn't find it. Some of the people who were working there started coming out and said, "What are you doing?" And we told them, I said, "Well, go down the road, you can get access to the river, you can kind of see it across the street and look around the banks." And we did for a long time, and had just about given up. This was really disappointing because I had already decided this was going to be Dipper Day. I got up in the morning saying, it's Dipper Day, it's going to be Dipper Day. If we don't get this bird, we're never going to see it.
I was ready to shoot myself back for a second.
About to give up. I can't believe this isn't going to be Dipper Day. When one zipped past my shoulder, past Ethan and around the corner, Dipper, it's here. And we had the best time watching this little bird do exactly what it was supposed to do for about 15 or 20 minutes. And you can see in the bottom left hand there, he dives in the water, gets a worm, whatever it is he's eating, and comes back up. It was really, really cool thing to see. And this is the only one we saw the entire year, even though we were in other places that they also inhabit.
One of the things that amazed me on our journeys was the difference between Washington State on the West Coast and Washington State on the East Coast. On the West Coast, it's rainforest, huge trees. It's raining all the time. And then on the other side of the mountains, it's arid. It's almost a desert. And so we went to
Mountain.
yeah, I know Mount Rainier. I'm losing the bird. Thrush. Berry thrush. Okay. Went up Mount Rainier to find a berry thrush, and we found one at the snow line. And so after that, we headed east. And this is an example this was taken a few hours apart on the east side, the west side of the mountain and the east side of the mountain. It's incredible the difference. And what we were there is looking for the Lewis's woodpecker. And people that I know that have looked for this bird, if they see one or two, they feel very, very excited. Well, we were at a, what was it? A nature preserve. And we were wandering around because we'd heard that this was a good spot for them. And the manager of the place said, "Oh, come on, there's a bunch of them in my yard." So he brought us into his yard, and there were like 12 of them nesting in the yard. And I wish you had better views here because it is a stunning bird. It's very Christmassy looking. It's green and red and white, and just a stunning bird. And they were making a racket, and it was truly a wonderful experience. August came around, and we did what most Americans do. We went to Arizona in August. The reason you go to Arizona in August if you're a birder is because that's the monsoon season. It rains, and the flowers start to come out, and the insects start coming out, and you have birds moving up from Mexico and down from the mountains. And so it's a great time to go birding. You have to bird before noon because it gets very, very hot. And we're just going to show you one bird that we got while we were there, but it's truly amazing. It's just outside Tucson, and we went up Mount Lemon, and then there's some valleys up in Mount Lemon, and we got the red-faced warbler. And frankly, this is a very tame bird. We got very, very close to it. There were a lot of them, but they're only found in this very small area, and it was absolutely stunning.
In September, we went to California, and sometimes people ask us if, we had anything to do again in our planning, what would you do? And the other, what we would say, I think, is agree on is that we would have made more than one trip to California. It's so vast. There's so many birds. There's so many different habitats, but we were there for 10 days in September. And one of the first birds we got, again, was a code 4 bird, and we've been hearing a lot about it. It was coming to Pine Lake Park in downtown San Francisco. Fortunately, it's not a big place. We got there, found some birders who pointed us to where it was in the trees, and we waited long enough for it to come down closer and closer. You can't see it very well right here, but it's got a very red breast and a very dark throat of a slate throat. So that was a really fun bird to get while we were there. When we arrived, we landed in LAX, and then we went to the Los Angeles River, which isn't really much of a river. It's pretty dry, and there's very little water in it.
Every movie in the 1950s or 60s that had teenagers in it, they drag race on this. So
We were looking for a white wagtail, which is a Eurasian species that had been seen there. When we were there, there was a huge heat wave, and it was 100 degrees. There's no shade there. We spent about 2 hours, and we were just drenched in sweat. Said, okay, the bird is probably hunkering down somewhere, which is really what we should be doing. We'll try again at the end of the trip, which we did. And with an hour to spare, we finally saw the bird before we got on the plane to come back home. And this wasn't the first time we'd seen one of these. We had seen one in Scotland a few years before.
yeah, it's a Eurasian bird. Seabirds, we talked a little bit earlier about all the different types of birds that you see out at sea and how important they are. Pelagic trips, which are trips designed specifically for birders. Whale watches. Whale watches are great because the whales eat the same thing the birds do. Tourists and sightseeing bird things, believe it or not, they tend to be a good place to pick up birds. Ferries, going from one place to another, you sit out open and you can see birds. And on the way back from the dry tortugas, we got a black-capped petrel. This was the most southern bird we got during the entire year. In May, we got our Atlantic puffins here at Eastern Egg Rock. I'm sure most of you have seen those. In June, we went out of Hatteras, North Carolina. Got an incredible number of seabirds, but this is a band rump storm petrel. This is on a ferry right after we got off in Seattle. A pigeon guillemot. We were going to get a lot more of those, but it was kind of cool on the ferry. And the other type of tough puffins that you see are tufted puffins on Smith Island. And if you're a birder in Maine, you know there's one hanging around the coast. And this is a South Polar skua that we got on a whale watch out of Bar Harbor. And in San Diego, we were on a real pelagic trip, and we got a red-billed tropic bird, and the whole boat exploded when this was seen. Everybody was so excited. And one of the other birders said, "That must be the first time you've ever seen a tropic bird, being from Maine." I said, "No, we've had one in Maine for 17 years.
The excitement about this bird is that for anybody that's been on these pelagic trips, sometimes they're 12 hours long. And a lot of the time you're seeing nothing. And we hadn't seen anything in hours. And all of a sudden somebody said, tropic bird, tropic bird. I mean, it was so exciting because it's a really exciting bird, but the boredom was broken finally.
The boat went nuts, absolutely nuts. And black-footed albatross. If the size of this bird is, there's just no words. It's huge.
The Whitaker.
Whitaker. Right.
So back in May, I think the Whitaker was in October, correct?
Yeah.
So the interesting part about this story is throughout the year, we were communicating with other people doing big years, including a young man named Ezekiel Dodson. who went on to really smash the big year record by about 12 birds.
Mhm.
We had communicated with him a lot during the year, but we had never met him. But there was a northern wheat ear on Long Island. We decided to go get it, and he did too at the same time. So we communicated with him back and forth. We got on the ferry in New London, Connecticut. He had already been out on Long Island about a half hour before us and waited for us to show us exactly where the bird was. So it was really fun. You can kind of see Ezekiel's just standing to my left here.
Unfortunately, I'm cut off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was another big ear birder hung on me as a friend of Ezekiel's who was there at the same time. So here we are together on this beach on Long Island. We got the bird, left and came back to Maine. So it was one of our last birds of the year, but not the last.
States we visited.
So we did not go to all 48 lower states. We went to 37. Okay, and you won't be able to see all of this, but some states got us more birds than others. We had made 3 trips to Florida. We got, I think, 121 birds there. Next up was Texas, 117, Arizona, 79. We got about 98 birds actually in Maine. And then the next runner-up was Massachusetts. So 37 states is where we had been. Another bird that was really exciting to get in a funny story was in Texas in November. We went to King Ranch, which is about the size of Rhode Island, to get this Ferruginous pygmy owl. This is another ranch where you're required to be on there with a guide. So we spent the whole morning searching for this little owl and couldn't find it. We all sat down, had lunch, the 3 of us. And while we're sitting eating our lunch, we could hear the owl and we're looking for it, couldn't find it. We never did find this owl. You can hear it here.
Mhm. Yeah, just-
But we took a lot of pictures, like, well, we were doing a weekly blog. What are we gonna say about this? We don't have the bird, you know, what are we gonna do? So I take pictures of the nesting cavity that they were in because they're excavated by golden-fronted woodpeckers. So we'll talk about that. We're going through our pictures and video after we got home. It might have even been a week or so
Yeah.
later.
Mhm.
And look what was in there. I couldn't see this from the angle I was taking this picture from. Might have even been video. But we never saw this owl, but it saw us. What's that?
How big is it?
Yeah,
Like,
pretty small.
very small.
Yeah.
Yeah, very small. We were looking at the video. Whoa.
We
So
were
the-
able to see a bird. You can't count birds that you hear by ear in a big year, but anyway, it was really kind of funny to see that. Our last bird of the year.
last bird of the year was on Nantucket at the middle or early January, December.
Yeah.
And basically, this bird showed up out there and we waited for the storms to clear, or we couldn't get out there because there was a Christmas stroll festival, etc. So we waited and waited and waited, and finally we got an opening to go. And we took the ferry, high-speed ferry out to Nantucket. And I think there were only about 30 people on this enormous boat, but 400 had gotten off because it had been the Christmas stroll. And Ingrid and I were driving people crazy because we're driving along, we're going, raise a bill, naming all the birds as we drove by. And we rented a car and drove out to the solar panels, and there was a northern lapwing, which basically, if I remember correctly, I think this could have summered in Iceland and Greenland and is supposed to head for Asia and Africa and flew the wrong direction. So we had really good views of them. And sadly, this was our last bird of the year. We had scheduled to go back down to Florida after Christmas for 3 birds, but those birds stopped being seen. And that was the only time all year that we bought refundable tickets. So we're very glad about that.
Yeah. Okay, so how we did. After the first day of January, we were in 2,666th place in the lower 48 figure standings. When we left Maine on January 28th on our 5-week road trip, there was still about 2,000 people ahead of us. But when we came back from Texas in March, we were in 10th place. So we picked up a lot of birds. And then in September, in our California trip, we moved into second place where we stayed. So that, yeah, till the end of the year. Ezekiel, 758 birds, smashing the record.
And the
And-
interesting thing about this is part of the reason we picked a lower 48 state big year is the Stoll brothers, I think out of Tennessee, had set the record of something like 747, and everybody said it's unbreakable. So we said, okay, this would be a good one because we won't be tempted to go chase it. And he killed it.
And we finished second with 708 birds, which we were really happy about. We thought if we could get 600, we'll feel like we're really satisfied with that. We got far more than we expected.
Superlatives. This is the Salton Sea in Southern California. It's environmental disaster area. It's a drying lake bed, and it's very acidic and very toxic. But there's a good place for gulls. But it was 118, 115 degrees. We got there looking for one gull, and our scopes were hot to touch. And finally, we found the gull and got back in the car. The coldest was 22 below in the Zaxton Bog. Yellow-footed gull. Yellow-footed gull. It's the only place in the US to find them reliably. And this was in the Zaxton Bog at 22 below. At night, the rough grouse come in and start eating catkins out of the trees. Yeah.
Several in one tree, which was really fun to see, so many in one tree.
Our-
Our luckiest get.
Yeah, our luckiest get was a code 4 yellow grosbeak and a code 3 rufous-back robin in the same tree.
This was at a botanical garden outside of Phoenix in October. Highest elevation.
Highest elevation, the white-tailed ptarmigan in Rocky Mountain National Park. It was 11,000 something feet, and it just hurt just to walk around. And the lowest was something like minus 220 feet in the Salton Sea. And again, you can't see the bird. The most frustrating bird of the entire year, and I hate this bird, was yellow-headed caracara.
Yeah.
Yellow-headed caracara. This was in a park in northern Miami. This is a bird that belongs in South America. It is still being seen. It's hanging around dumpsters, hanging around the university, just flying around. We made 4 trips over multiple trips to Florida to get this bird. Most of it was spent staring at dumpsters because this is where it was,
Hours of staring at dumpsters.
It was awful. And finally, we had a flight out. We were staying in Naples, so we had to go back across, and it was getting dark. We had befriended some birders from Canada that had spent the day being miserable staring at dumpsters. And we left and said goodbye to them, but we gave them our phone number just in case. So we had left the park and we're driving through Miami, Saturday night traffic. And they called and said, the bird's here. And we said, do we turn around? And Ingrid said, you better turn around now. So we did a Batman turn and we rushed back to the park, and we got to the gate, and the woman didn't want to let us in, and we had to plead and stuff. So we finally got in, and we ran around the park and looked, and just as they were starting to clear people out, it flew. Oh shoot! It flew right by the dumpsters. So it was pretty cool.
Still hate the bird though.
So our favorite birds of the year, obviously this is a split decision, the great gray owl or the elegant trogon. And we've talked about a number of the birds that we saw. Obviously we can't go through all 708, but we can show you all 708.
2 minutes.
While it goes, are there any questions?
If anyone's watched the movie The Big Year, they do something like this at the end. But they repeat birds. If you watch it, they repeat the birds. There's no repeats here.
We kept we did a weekly, podcast, not a YouTube video, that's still online. It's under Big Ear Birding if you're interested. And, we have some books for sale if you're interested.
Questions?
Stretch the imagination.
Oh, you're so lucky.
But this has been really fascinating. I did have one question. I live in Lyman, which is about 20 minutes from here. And twice a year, I get this incredible influx of grackles. And I mean, it's like 50 or 60 birds. It's like Alfred Hitchcock. And my curiosity is where are they the rest of the time? You know, am I only seeing them because they're coming?
They're coming through. They're coming through. I mean, the blue jays you see during the winter are not the same blue jays you see during the summer. Their birds are constantly moving north and south, east, west, and I really can't help stuff. It's probably in some wetland. You'll see that's where they went, but who knows?
It's amazing to see that many of the same species all at once. And they only come like twice a year. So obviously it's on their
Moving through. Moving through.
Very strange.
Hi, guys. Great. So, was there any bird that one of you saw and the other didn't?
We got very close several times, but we always got them. We always got them.
What if it had, would you not count that bird?
We never really, never had that conversation. Yeah.
That would either had different numbers or we just wouldn't have counted it. We thought we never really got, what are we gonna do? Well, I don't know. Let's, make sure we both get both. And if it happens, then we'll figure it out.
We were hours apart sometimes, but we managed to always get them.
The advantages we had is we had two sets of eyes, two sets of ears. That definitely gave us an advantage, but we were never, there's never divide and conquer, you go here and I'll go there. I mean, we're always very close by, even with the Trogan. Ethan was within, hearing distance of me, for those reasons, as though we could, try to make sure that we both got each of the birds. And we did have a couple of close calls, but we got really lucky and were able to get, each other on those birds.
So which one is the photographer?
Well, the still shots are all Ethan's, and everything that's in our books are all
And what do you
Ethan's.
have for camera?
An Essex 70 Polaroid, one of those things you press the button. No, an OM one. It's a Olympus but
He started out with the differences. Some of the shots were with a Nikon
Nikon.
D7000.
7,500, yeah. What was it? A Tamron. Started with a Tamron. The problem I had with that is. Is what?
Was it Brian Wins?
I don't know. I don't. But I shoot on autofocus so much.
Shoot 600.
Yeah,
Friends, and there was on a Nikon D7500 camera.
right.
And
But that thing gave up the ghost because the humidity, it couldn't handle the humidity.
Yeah.
And so it stopped working on him when we were in Arizona in August.
And in Florida, when we were sitting at the dumpsters.
Right, fortunately, what happened to us, August, we were at the Southeast Arizona Birding Festival, that's when they have their festival. And there was a representative from OM, which is used to be Olympus. And he let Ethan borrow this camera for 2 days to use, and he fell in love with it, and so purchased that then. So that was not until August, so
Yeah.
everything before that was the Nikon.
you shoot in manual mode?
No, almost always automatic. Yeah,
You get a lot better.
sure. Yeah,
You know,
Ingrid?
I did the video, and that was on, I can't even, it's a Panasonic. Much less advanced camera, but it takes good video.
So I use a manual mode and I have bit of nice.
I think you could teach us some things probably.
There you go.
I control shutter speed
Mhm.
and the, fix the shutter speed and fix the aperture and let the, ISO flow.
Good for you.
Yes.
Was there a bird that you thought for sure you were gonna get and you didn't?
Oh.
Three-toed
Well,
woodpecker.
yeah, our real nemesis bird, the American three-toed woodpecker, which is hard to get in Maine, which we tried for in Maine up on the Golden Road, didn't get it. We thought for sure we'd get it in Colorado when we were out there in October and really tried for it there, but never did find
We
it.
looked in Arizona, we looked in Washington State, we looked in Oregon, we looked, all these places where it's supposed to be, and I don't think it exists.
No.
Mhm.
We both had scopes.
Yes.
Yeah, the one he would carry around is a bigger, heavier scope. I have a smaller, more compact one, but they're
But
good for different
We
purposes.
would only, when we got on planes, we'd only bring one scope.
Yeah.
So,
Imagine how much time and planning it took to do the ending part with the music and photographing and keeping track of what, I didn't see any repetitions.
Yeah.
No.
well, I'd have to help clean the house or cook.
He loves doing this
Mm.
kind of stuff, yeah.
You want to mention to the Zoom viewers your books again and where, if there's somewhere they can get them.
Yeah, we have 3 books. One is called Every Bird from Sea to Shining Sea, and that's about the big year we did last year. We have one called Every Bird in Maine, and that is about my big year back in 2021. And then we have a kid's book called,
What's that bird?
Yeah.
A kid's guide to the common backyard birds of New England.
and you can get them any place. Bird books are sold. You can get them online, the usual places.
Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Once you go over there.
You can be-